How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael Thurville, photojournalist and sociologist here at VEDA World News. You can catch this broadcast on VEDACOM.com with two M's. That's VEDACOMM.com. And today I have a very special political guest here. I'm going to let him introduce himself to you guys. Sir.
I'm Stephen Huey, longtime Houstonian. I'm originally from Texas, lived in Nigeria the second half of my childhood. Came to Rice University, and I've been solving problems in healthcare, finance, and energy ever since.
That is really good. And what's noticeable about this particular political candidate is the fact that he spent a large majority of his life in Nigeria. Would that be factual?
That's factual.
What is it like?
It's obviously is a totally different world coming from Texas as a kid. And I lived not just in one place in Nigeria, I lived in 3 different parts of the country.
Wow.
A lot of Nigerians will be surprised to hear that I lived in Ogbomoso to start with. And then Lagos is the big city, of course. You might meet a lot of people that are from there or have lived there. And then also up north in Jos. But I got to visit people all over in all corners of Nigeria, which is a little bit unusual for, a lot of Nigerians might come from the big city, kind of like how New Yorkers don't get out much. It could be similar over there, and so a lot of people that came from Lagos are amazed that I've been to all these parts of Nigeria.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Do you speak a little bit of the language? I don't know how much of the language you actually speak.
So I lived over time in different language areas of the country, and Nigeria is amazing, right? It's a linguist paradise, right?
Really?
Depending on how you count it, 200 plus languages, maybe more.
Wow.
In Eastern Africa, there's a lot of dialects of small number of languages, but in West Africa, there's a lot of really separate, distinct languages, partly because there was more forest and it was harder for people to travel and get far away from their roots, so they kind of preserved their own individual languages. So yeah, I mean, in the kind of the southern part of Nigeria, the Yoruba land, where Hakeem Olajuwon's from, the old people would be so tickled if, as a little kid, I'd walk up to them in the morning and say like "Ekairo" or "Shey Dadani" is like, "Did you wake well?" They have in that culture they have 2 minutes of greetings, and they just love it if I can say anything. And also in the north, they have the Hausa language, and that to say hello there is more like "Sanu Daiki" or something like that. So. So I got to live in different parts of the country, but when we did live in the big city, after learning a little bit of the Yoruba language, even though technically Lagos is in Yoruba land, it seems like 1 out of 3 people you'd run into would be like, "I don't speak Yoruba," because it's the big city. It's like New York. They're coming from all over the country, living there. So it just depends.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about politics here on the local level first.
Right.
And before we even get there, what started you getting into politics? What was that inspiration that said, "Hey, this is something that I want to do"? Right.
So, to be honest, if you'd asked me in January, I would have had no idea I'd be doing this year. Right? I mean, I think a lot of us didn't know that the seat was going to open up, and sadly it did. But like many Americans over the years, I might have been concerned about things going on in our country. As a father of 4 kids, I'm kind of concerned about the country that they're going to grow up in. And, my wife might have been a little depressed in 2016, like, what does this mean? Should we just leave the country?
Wow.
But, you can't just give up and walk away, right? You got to keep, serving in your community, your country. So I will say that I was not part of the political establishment, not at all.
But that could be a really good thing, the fact that, hey, no one can say, "I paid this guy."
That's very true. I have been careful to make sure that I'm not taking money from anybody that would compromise me, right? So I have known people that either here or up in DC have either run, served, or worked for someone that was in office. I remember before 2010, visiting friends working for congressmen in DC, right? One of them in particular, he grew up in Nigeria with me. But I remember saying like, because I had already moved into Sheila Jackson Lee's district, and so I knew her for a little bit, and I had already started voting for her, and I was like, "Hey, do you know Myra?" And they were like, he and another friend were like, "Yes, we do." I mean, I didn't realize she was kind of famous already. She made herself known, right?
And she does have a sort of aura about herself when she comes out, especially when she speaks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and over the years, as I got older, that was in my 20s, and
Okay.
over the years, I got to know more about her. Obviously, I very much appreciate Juneteenth. Maybe in some parts of the country, people don't understand the history of that. It's very local to the Houston area, Galveston, I remember 2016, right? The whole Muslim ban thing happened, and
Yeah.
she was at the airport like that day doing a press release conference, and I was like, all right, she's on the case, So I just appreciate her being willing to take a stand when it matters, right? So I knew a little bit about politics from some of these friends. I wasn't following it closely. I have some friends now that are like political junkies, and it's like they know all the players.
I would love to be able to have the opportunity to have them right here on this show when we finish up.
It's like they follow it like a soap opera or something, and it's like it is kind of a lot of drama, right?
It is.
But I just never follow it like that, I mean, I might be paying attention to the news, some of the relevant issues, but I would say over the years I might have joked only as much as saying, hey, yeah, if I make it big in Hollywood someday, which I have not taken any steps to do that, but then it could be fun to come back and run for senator of Texas because you don't have to campaign. It's like what we want Matthew McConaughey to do and he's not doing, right?
Right.
The guy just needs to get up and serve.
Yeah. And I think everybody likes him. I think everybody does. Yeah.
Right. So all that to say is I had not ever expected in January, that I would be running as a U.S. representative, right? But when that seat opened up, I mean, I knew a little bit about, I was watching kind of how it was unfolding in the news. I saw some candidates were jumping in. I won't name names, but one candidate I saw was complaining about another candidate having everything ready to go, and I was like, a little bit of drama, but of course it's a special election so we expect that, right? And but at the same time, I was just wondering, I don't know all the people involved, right?
Gotcha.
But I would say, like, I know that my faith doesn't allow me to be compromised. Plus, my wife would come beat me over the head if I ever did something corrupt. And honestly, for a long time, corruption, both here in Houston and at the federal level, has been something.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Republican, stated that Harris County has one of the most corrupt political systems right here in Texas. And, being privy to certain conversations, I would actually hear and actually see what happens behind closed doors, where you have parties funding both sides. Republicans are funding Democrats to ensure they get who they need in. Democrats are funding certain people in the Republican Party to see who they can get in. You see what I'm saying? It's almost like neither side wants to win, but they still want to be prevalent. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Also, there's been talk about certain 501c3s being allocated to certain candidates in order to make it appear that they have more money than what they have. So those things like that are happening right here in Harris County, and I would not be surprised if it is not happening with this particular congressional run. What are your thoughts on that?
Right, so I'm not an affordable housing expert, but I have seen over the years, right, I've heard, bits and pieces, right? Stories about a little corruption here and there, or even in the last year, there was an article about, I think they were trying to say that, maybe like it was almost like excess housing was built in the wrong areas or something like that. And it's like, we have these funds, we can, we have limited time, effort, and resources. And it's like, we need to be very careful with those funds, right? To make sure they're used correctly. I just saw that the pastor of Ecclesia was on some Houston podcast and talking about how they have tried to help with affordable housing over the years. And it's like, we have a lot of people around the city that probably would want to help to try to make sure there's no profiteering, like people who are definitely nonprofit oriented.
Most definitely.
And it's like, why are we not relying on that through in the various neighborhoods to cut down on some of this corruption that we see?
Well, here's a quick question. Do you see gentrification being an issue in Houston? Do you see that as an issue, or is that something that people are making to be overblown?
Well, definitely in my adult life, Houston, many parts of it have been super gentrified. And I know that a lot of people, maybe people who are not looking for affordable housing even, just maybe they're even considered middle class and they're looking for an affordable place to live. they have talked about the difficulty with that, which Houston has slowly moved towards. I think you're from a big city up north where you might have had, here we had a city that was like all like single-story buildings mostly, right? And we're kind of building higher, which does help with that a little bit, right? And I know some people don't like the multifamily buildings for affordable housing. Like maybe if some seniors aren't used to living in that environment, I understand that. But for the future, I mean, I think our city has to be smarter about that.
Not only just smarter, I think that Houston, like many southern cities, have to embrace the fact that change is inevitable. Okay? For instance, when Metro wanted to expand their rail line, a lot of people in Houston fought against that, which tied their hands, and therefore they didn't expand that rail line. You see what I'm saying? But I've always taken the position when it comes to things like this is, if it's better for the greater good of the people in the city, why not just do it?
Right.
Because even just like what last week, they just started a bus route that goes exclusively to Bush International Airport, like just last week. But Bush Airport has been here forever.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I remember, I don't know, 15 years ago or so, I was coming back from somewhere, and I at that time I lived fairly close to downtown, and I didn't want to. I had come from a city where you could get around easily on foot.
Very easy.
And I was like, okay, there's a bus. And I hopped on that bus, and of course it takes a long time dropping at neighborhoods near the airport before it finally comes downtown.
Correct.
And that was back then. And so I was excited to hear that in the news. Obviously, it's a quarter century or more overdue to have that. I mean, it's like we're supposed to be a world-class city, and we're not acting like it, right?
Like a world-class
city.
city.
You fly to London, it's like you take this train that gets you into downtown in 15 minutes. It's amazing, right?
It is.
So I remember back when I was at Rice a quarter century ago, hearing about how,
You make yourself sound old, man.
Yeah, I'm not that old, but
I got you.
Houston, was proud about being, no zoning and stuff like that. But I remember my architecture friends at Rice, people studying to be an architect, they were like, yeah, but it's kind of ugly. And it's like, it helped the city grow.
It did.
But we're such a large city that we need some wiser long-term planning.
Correct.
That sounds bad to some people because it's like centrally planned or whatever you want to say, top-down planning, but at this point, I feel like we must do that because otherwise we're just going to have all these pockets of, areas that are left behind.
Absolutely true. And I just want to say to the viewers out there, if you're unfamiliar with Houston, Texas, or just never been, Houston, Texas is 700 square miles.
Right.
That is a lot of land. And for us, like you were saying, not to have any mastermind when it comes to zoning is problematic.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, right? Because I briefly worked for a Boston software startup.
Okay.
And it's like the whole city, including the suburbs, millions of people would fit in a small corner of our inner loop here in Houston.
Yes.
Right? Now, that doesn't mean we can't have a spread out city like we do. It just means that we'll probably have to we need to put a lot more thought into what we're going to do going forward because, again, it's hard to get around. Let me think about it. So, we've had these attempts at times, right? Like, trying to put in a light rail where they were talking about it for decades, right? And it's like, we can't have this inertia anymore. We just have to start acting.
Yeah. Even with that high-speed train that goes from Houston to Dallas to San Antonio, that's been talked about since I've been here, and I've been here 6 years.
Yes.
So I really would like people in government to really understand how vital quick, easy, accessible, efficient transportation is because it is a driver for economic growth. I have to say that. It's just so important when we have pockets or communities that are considered pockets of poverty right here in Houston.
Right.
My question is, in the 18th district, because that is what you're running for, how do you plan to address that?
Yeah, the transportation side?
Transportation, economic drivers, how do you tackle that?
Right. So, transportation is just one area that would help people to have a boost economically, right? More, easier access to jobs that are going to be better than something that doesn't really get you anywhere. But in general, so I met with the American Small Business League recently.
Okay.
Right? They have very specific goals, but they highlighted that they feel like a lot of handouts go to large businesses. Well, guess how many businesses in America are small businesses?
Majority of all.
Yeah, depending on if you can't stop it at 100 or 500 people, it's either 98 or 99% of businesses in America, right?
Yes.
And so much of the carve-outs in Congress, special favors are going to large businesses, whereas small businesses are the bedrock of the nation. And we should be investing in those.
We should be.
Yeah, more. I mean, the large businesses, by and large, don't need those handouts as much as small business owners,
In
right?
fact, I would even go as far as saying not even investing. I would just rather than subsidizing.
Yeah.
Because that's what China did.
Right.
China looked at their situation. When you remember back in the 80s, the only thing China was known for was kung fu movies who mouths didn't move to the words and fried rice. That was really it. I'm going to be very honest with you. But China has turned itself around economically. And one of the biggest ways they did that was by subsidizing businesses to grow. I think that Houston, especially the 18th district, can really benefit from such a program. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I've been a small business owner for the last few years,
Okay.
right? A technology firm, and it's really annoying, right? That I've seen all these things. I've been part of over the years various tech startup accelerators, right?
Okay.
Here in Houston, we've had like Surge or Station Houston. We have the Ion is doing stuff like this now, and it's great to have these, but it's kind of like for just a very limited segment of the population, right? That would benefit, and it helps. But for a small business owner in our country, we're supposed to be favoring entrepreneurialism, right?
We're supposed to be.
Yeah, and it's like we have all these burdens, right? Just healthcare alone is really annoying, okay? That it's so unaffordable. Now, I know there's other things in Europe that stop small businesses from, it's hard to be an entrepreneur there in certain ways, but they have stuff like that more taken care of, right?
Correct.
I'm not sitting here thinking, okay, for my employees, can I, provide decent healthcare, or can I even recruit them? They all want to go work for the big company that has this massive subsidy.
Correct.
And so, if we kind of remove the obstacles, the uphill battle for some of those things, then it's easier for someone to just go out and be industrious on their own and start something rather than settle into a minimum wage job.
Understood. Now, one of the things I observed with these political debates right here in Houston is that they do not ask tough questions. You were recently part of a debate as early as last week, correct? Mm-hmm. And I'm working cameras there. I'm a camera operator / journalist, and I'm really not seeing any tough questions. So today is that time to really start asking these tough questions. What do you want to see or plan to do for the residents that reside in District 18?
Okay, so a lot of people around Texas don't realize that we are even getting hit hard by the governor in, say, our school district, right? We have this state that takes pride in fighting against federal overreach. But I think Houstonians have often felt like, at least in recent years, we're having overreach from on high at the state level. And they don't, it feels like they don't really, it's almost like they want us to stop existing.
Yeah, and when you speak of that overreach, one of the biggest ones was with HISD. If you don't know what HISD is, Houston Independent School District with Mike Miles. A lot of people were very upset with that. I was there at the protest on several occasions. What are your thoughts on that? How do you plan to deal with that, especially in District 18?
So I wasn't, obviously I wasn't on the school board before.
Understood.
If there was any corruption or anything like that, well, that's obviously very sad. But the way that they're handling it now, I thought 20, 30 years ago, we knew that teaching to the test was bad, right? And right now, so I have friends who go to their girls are at an elementary school very close to here. Also, some friends from my church were talking about, in the last few weeks, there was an article in the Chronicle about at Durham Elementary, a star teacher was sent packing for speaking up for what's right for the kids, right? And here in this area, it was not only teachers, it was also a really excellent principal that was sent packing. And these people know what's good for kids, but we have rules coming down from on high saying, no, we got to do it this other way. As someone who got within one class of being certified to teach in Texas when I was in college, and I've always thought about maybe doing that one day, and I care very much about that. I don't really trust their way of teaching, right? Again, these metrics often seem contrived. I mean, I know people were celebrating recently that they have raised some schools. It's possible that in the hardest hit schools they have somehow helped the students to do better or to score better, right? But the way they're doing it, from what I'm hearing from parents, I feel like it's shortchanging kids for the long run, especially these young elementary students. You know, it's like they're not even having like recess, or they're not having a creative education. It's very much like watching slides on a screen, and not as much.
And that's for corporate America. That is not for children.
Yeah, natural teacher interaction with the teachers who can kind of see, how is this kid doing? Do I need to adjust my approach for that one student to try to explain it better? I mean, that's what teachers are supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be recruiting caring and capable teachers.
So how do you plan to fight for that? A Democrat running for office in a red Republican state such as Texas, how do you plan, what is your method of attack or process? So,
you know, for this local school district, there's only so much that a representative in the U.S. House can do, right? They can maybe amplify this problem, but long before we had this problem happen here, which I noticed a lot, I've asked Texans in other parts of Texas, do you even know that this happened in our district? They don't even know, right?
Really?
A lot of them haven't heard much about it, right? And so I've tried to say, you know, look, you know, Texas is all about trying to be independent, and they're not really giving us independence, right? But long before this ever happened, when I was at Rice, one of my education professors, she felt like we needed to go back to the drawing board on how we do education in America, right? I know there are people that just, it almost feels like they just want to get rid of public schools entirely and just have private schools. And I'm like, it's okay if you want to have your private schools. But is that really a good solution for the rest of the kids in America?
Wow, this is absolutely true. This is a good question to ask.
So going back to when I was in college, I agreed with that professor that, you know, first of all, the way that we fund schools is very strange. I mean, I know a country like Finland that has an excellent educational system. It's a tiny little country. It's easier. The logistics are easier. We have this massive spread out country. It's tricky, especially when you have states that don't want the federal government dictating from on high what's going to happen everywhere. But honestly, we need to do something about making sure we raise the baseline of education for all students.
On an equal footing.
Yeah, if these wealthy kids maybe will have something nicer, I mean, that's what we have to live with. But like, at least the baseline should be raised for all kids. So what was I going to say?
It's okay.
Yeah. There's, you know, it's like, even if you don't care about the kids, if you're like some heartless person who just wants to see yourself benefit, I mean, if you care about the nation, but from a selfish perspective, for the long-term health of the United States, the whole nation would be more prosperous if all the children have kind of a better baseline of education.
It's true.
Right? And it's like, who's explaining that to the American people? I mean, I think people try to at certain times, but I don't think that's landing very well. And that might be a long game, but I feel like it should happen.
Understood.
I understand people don't like it. They don't like the federal government coming dictating. But I'm like, if you state and that state and that state, I mean, Texas is not great at taking care of kids historically in recent years. And so it's like, if you're not going to do your job, then someone might have to come and
again, I'm going to go geopolitical here.
Yeah.
Countries such as Russia, China, even Finland, and to some degree, they don't see the United States as a reliable partner, right? And this trickles down to education here in this country. And the reason for that is because there's too many governments within the government. Like you were saying, a lot of people feel as if the federal is getting too much reach down to the local level. The local level is fighting back. Then the state level comes into both sides of those levels, from the state and from the federal and the local level. So all of this infighting appears to be stifling education, the quality of life, employment, jobs for people, not only just in the 18th district, but around Texas and ultimately around the United States. What are your thoughts on the federal government, I don't want to say being the sole, what's the word I want to use here? The sole governorship of everything that happens and start taking away states' rights. What are your thoughts on that? Should we modify the way this country does things to be in accordance with the times? Because if the state and the local levels are fighting the federal government is fighting the local and state levels, nothing's hardly really getting done. People are suffering. Are you in favor of it just simply being one government on the federal level? I guess that's what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I mean, that's what I have been implying, and, you know, again, I wonder if in the long term, it's going to take a lot of shouting about it to try to get someone to change. Now, you know, it could be that with the threat of the federal government doing this, that the states would then, you know, get busy and actually fix things, right? I don't know the answer to that because I know there could be massive backlash.
It is going to be massive backlash. I can say it here at VEDA World News. It's going to be backlash.
Yeah, but I know for my entire adult life, and actually before, because I thought I was going to be a teacher even before college, and I was kind of into it a little bit, and you know, I just felt like a lot of people were kind of being left behind, and you know, I'm going to give you an example. I know someone over on the Memorial side of town, you know, kind of a wealthy school district, but you still had, he was explaining that you had these schools, and it's like you know, they give money to the state level, and then it kind of comes back down, and sometimes even like a PTA at one school is required to give some money to another school, and it's like all this money flowing around in a weird, convoluted way because of our historical reliance on like local property taxes, right?
Yes.
And it's like a state like Texas is so proud that we don't have a state income tax or something like that, right? But we have taxes here.
Right.
We pay a lot of local taxes. And it's like, you know, that should probably be streamlined, and then maybe we wouldn't have this weird problem, right? What if the state level literally helped out local school districts with funding so there wasn't this weird from the bottom up property tax thing?
I firmly agree with you on that particular aspect. The state should do more to equalize the economic stability of all students when they come to Texas schools. One school should not have more resources than another. Because to me, when I look at that, when you do that, you're saying that this school, this population, this demographic of students are better than this demographic of students.
Right.
That's what it comes across as, irregardless, if that's even a word, of whether the property taxes are on par with each other or not.
Right.
We are playing with our future. That's what we're doing.
So I've been trying to say that I'm going to advocate for pragmatic policies.
Okay.
Now, the reality is we have the country as it is right now. That means that a lot of times you have to see what you can practically achieve.
Correct.
Right? You can't do everything. And you can imagine if a wealthy school district like Katy or somewhere, they have this massive football stadium, right?
Right.
Really nice resources. And it's like, you know, I would never like say, hey, we're going to take your money away or whatever, right? Because then you're not going to get anything over the finish line, right?
Correct.
But I feel like the way to drive the point home is like, yes, but the kids that don't have even a decent education, we need to make sure that they can have an excellent one.
Okay.
Other countries are doing that. We're supposed to be kind of the world leader in many different things.
Correct.
Why can't we at least ensure that they get an excellent education? I remember, you know, I've talked to people, engineers and whatnot, who from Germany or in other countries like that, and they're like, yeah, you know, we just live in a simple apartment. We go to university, and we don't have any big sports stadiums at university. We get our engineering degree. It's not very expensive. We get it done. We get a good job. And in America, we have this culture, and I'm not going to say we have to take away a lot of the cultural things you want. You know, a lot of schools have like really nice dormitories, or you know, a lot of festivities, right, with the big, you know, sports stadiums and all that. I'm not saying we have to take that away. I will say that when we try to compare ourselves to other countries, well, that is where some of the money is going here.
Correct. And which makes Rice University such a really good university was that they focused more on academics than they did sports.
That's true. Yeah.
I think a lot of people who are hardcore academics can greatly appreciate that.
Yes.
I know I do.
Yes. A fun fact for you: they're massive. When I was a tour guide when I was at Rice,
Okay.
I didn't even get paid. I didn't know that. I didn't know that other colleges paid their tour guides. We just
Okay.
did it for the love of Rice. But when I was walking around backwards around campus, telling people everything, that massive football stadium would generally only fill up for like a George Strait concert.
Okay.
You could fit all Rice alums, living and dead, in the lower tiers of the stadium.
Wow.
Right? So it got built because Rice happened to win a bowl game around 1950 or 51.
Okay.
And some engineering firm with alums from Rice got excited and built them this huge, it was like the largest stadium in Texas for decades.
Wow.
But, they didn't need it.
Right.
Someone just decided to build
Do
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where JFK gave a famous moon speech. But,
Wow.
yeah. Anyway, so you're right. It was when I was there. It was like usually like the first or second smallest Div 1 school. So it's kind of amazing they even were participating in some Div 1 sports. But yeah, I mean, even the athletes there are known for being academically strong.
And that is really good.
Yeah.
Let's change transition over to geopolitics. One of the favorite questions I like to ask political candidates, and I'm going to, like I said, I name names. You don't have to, but I do, because I believe in transparency.
Right.
I asked Amanda Edwards a very specific question. She was on that panel with you that night.
Yes.
I asked her on the federal level, will the Israeli lobby control you? I posed that same question over to you.
Right.
Will AIPAC control you as a political candidate?
I've never met them. I don't have any ties to them, so
Okay.
I don't foresee that.
Okay.
I have known people here in Houston that have Israeli citizenship, right?
Okay.
And I think they don't. One of them that I'm thinking of in particular, even served over there in the military, but that was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, something like that. And I know the guy definitely doesn't like politics.
Understood.
But I also, way back 15 plus years ago, my church was part of a church conference, and they kind of met at a big place in Galveston. And this group of churches invited a Palestinian pastor, to come speak to us and everything. So, and I have a lot of friends from countries that neighbor Israel. So I basically know people from most of those countries
West
right
Asia.
there. And I will say that a lot of people here in America, it's such a polarizing topic what's going on over there, and a lot of people don't realize that over there, actually, they all kind of. I mean, it's not like they all know each other, but you might have people who go between those countries, and they kind of see them as fellow human beings, right?
They do.
Here we think they're all just at war constantly, right? And there is a war right now. However, some people feel, I don't know him personally, but some people feel perhaps the leadership of Israel is, could be doing things better than they're doing right now.
Okay.
A lot of us were very heartbroken, obviously, when those raids happened, and yes, they need to defend themselves, but it's like when you get down on the ground with people from those countries right next to each other, they don't necessarily all feel the way that the media here makes it seem like they feel.
Yes.
Right? They actually, again, value each other as human beings.
And get along for the most part outside of.
And often it is politicians that are really making things difficult, right?
Yes, and I think anybody with a good conscience can see that.
Right.
Again, we're not picking on Israel. We're not picking on Palestine. We're just simply stating the facts. Right now, currently in Israel, there is infighting within the cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people in the cabinet really don't like the way Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is handling the situation. There's a lot of people that feel as if he could do a better job. There's a lot of people that think he should go,
right,
because of all the chaos that has been happening there. Let's look at this here, Venezuela. Mm-hmm. You have a person running, Carmen, who will be here later on today. She's from Venezuela. What are your thoughts on what's happening with Venezuela right now?
Yeah, so I've actually worked in recent years with multiple Venezuelans, and I don't think they see eye to eye with her on everything.
Okay.
I know she's kind of talking about being concerned about, amplifying socialism in the United States and all that kind of stuff. But yes, over time, that country has done very poorly. There are, but it's kind of pretty unfair right now because our current administration is using some of this unfortunate history to kind of like, demonize all people from that country as criminals and things like that.
Okay.
I mean, clearly Carmen is not a criminal.
Correct.
And,
We can all see that.
But if we listen to the president, we might think they all are. And
Yeah.
they're all coming here to, hurt us. And it's like, we would be better off trying to see what we can do to help in a productive way,
Okay.
rather than kind of spit this vitriol, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It's just not a good. It's not a good way forward for our country.
Mm.
These are our American neighbors, really. I mean, we're in the same hemisphere over here.
Correct.
And in history, the United States has sometimes done things that were not very helpful in some Latin American countries, and we have seen the consequences of that over time, right?
Yes.
I mean, my church will definitely teach that there are consequences to past actions, and if you don't like to live with them now, it's not necessarily the fault of the people there.
Venezuelan President Maduro stated that the Trump administration's war is not necessarily about the distribution and trafficking of narcotics. It is simply about the natural resources such as oil and gas, in which Venezuela is a rich oil and gas country. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I worked with a petroleum engineer from Venezuela at an energy company here a few years ago, and anytime you see something being amplified, by a politician,
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost, you always want to ask, is there some money involved somewhere?
Is there money involved in this whole ordeal?
Well, I don't know what they are thinking exactly.
Okay, fair
But
enough.
I know where there are resources. I know that the country, I've been kind of following the country ever since, the Allo Presidente drama, reality TV show from Venezuela, which was, it's kind of funny because it was almost like the Trump "you're fired" type thing, right?
Okay.
He would just fire cabinet ministers on live TV in front of the country. It's like, I don't know that, it doesn't feel like they're doing anything to really be helpful. So what is their motivation? I can't say.
Understood.
But often I ask, where is there money involved? Can we find that? And then we'll follow that trail.
Are you a proponent of what is known as the Trump tariffs, as the reciprocal tariffs? Are you a fan of it? What are your thoughts?
So I've argued about this with people who believe in them, or they want to give it time to see if it plays out nicely.
Okay.
I remember being, preteen, reading in history books, our textbooks here in America, that didn't really work out so well in the past. It seems like we would be a bit wiser now. There's such a blunt instrument, right?
It is.
It's and honestly, we've penalized a lot of allies or people that were their formula for how there's an imbalance is not really an accurate formula that people in business or economists would say it really reflects reality. So based on their track record, I've just never been super confident that they know exactly what they're doing, right? And
are you calling these people incompetent?
I would say that I know people that seem to know more what they're doing, and I kind of trust those people more.
Very astute.
So there are ways in which the U.S., I believe in intervening when necessary. So I've worked in tech, right, and rare earth metals, that go into all of our technology nowadays. We have gotten to a point where it's a bit risky, even for our national security.
What do you mean risky?
Right, that they are only in certain parts of the world, and we would have been wiser to kind of secure those earlier. And we're taking steps now to make deals with countries that have a lot of them, but so between not having access to the materials we need for all of our modern technology, right? Whether it's stuff that you and I use or even the military uses, that's where there's been like it's kind of a national security risk if there's a risk that we would ever be cut off from them, right? So it's not just it's the materials, but also chips. You know, when I was a kid, you'd see like a sticker on a computer, Intel inside. You know, talking about the computer processor. But really nowadays we have so many different kinds of computer chips in so much of our daily life, right? And again, the US military relies on so many of these chips, and they're generally being manufactured in a very small number of places, right? And some of those places are allied with us, and some are, you know, it's kind of rocky.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, tech is supreme.
Yeah.
And I foresee tech being supreme for the next 50, 100 years, easy.
Right.
Your thoughts on the CHIPS Act?
Yeah. It is important. Okay, so they're trying to bring more of that manufacturing here, and part of that is a national security reason, right? Like if another country is ever conquered and we lose our supply, I mean, it would be dangerous ultimately for us to not have that for our military, for defense, right?
Yes, sir.
So I get that. I mean, I say it's good that we're doing that now. Those are areas of government intervention where some people in the past might say the government shouldn't play games in the economy, but that's not really true. I mean, in general, we need to be smart about where we are kind of interfering, if you want to call it that. It's not that interfering is always bad, right? Sometimes it's necessary. And so we got to pick and choose very carefully, and that's a very good example of where we should intervene, as opposed to just big, massive, blunt tariffs all over the world, and it's like, you know, trying to tell your base that, well, yeah, we're going to get all these countries to kind of like bow down to us, and you know, it's like they don't know from one week to the next. Are you going to do something different? That's
do you think the Trump's administration stance on, let's say, chips and tariffs? Do you see that as desperation, as a move of desperation?
With chips specifically, I think in the past already people, before Trump came back in, people were already aware that something needed to be done with that. But the tariffs, I feel like it's just, I feel like it plays into his desire for, you know, he's got like a pay-to-play mentality in general, like getting people to donate to him just to have access to him. And the tariffs are kind of like that as well. Like, I'm gonna put some pain on you to get you to do what I want.
But the world obviously doesn't work like that. With the rise of the BRIC nations, Brazil, India, Russia, China, South America, Pakistan, Iran, like the world just doesn't operate on this pay-to-play unipolar idea or concept. This world has become a web where everyone is dependent upon each other. So whereas what I'm seeing geopolitically is Trump says, hey, we're going to slap you with 50% additional tariffs on what we already tariffed you on. India says, we're going to continue to buy Russian oil regardless of whatever tariffs you place on us. We need oil, we need energy, we need cheap energy, because cheap energy is a driver, right? China owns a vast majority of the rare earth metals. They're saying, hey, we're willing to just not give you any rare earth metals if you want to continue to keep tariffing us like that. What are your thoughts on this multipolar world that we're living in right now as far as tech?
Yeah, when he first started doing the tariffs, I would have warned that, you know, he's looking for some kind of short-term gain, and it's going to result in us having long-term pain. But some of this is happening way sooner, right?
It is.
India closing up to Russia is not good for us long term.
Why do you say that?
That's one of the biggest countries in the world. We've historically had good relationships with them. We don't just need to get rid of that. I mean, we you know, for people that are concerned about some of those other countries, China and Russia, for example, we shouldn't be trying to send other countries to go work with them. We should keep those relationships open because we could get left in the cold eventually.
Well, I mean, evidently, Europe is left in the cold. They don't have any cheap oil and gas anymore that used to come
Right.
from Russia.
And maybe they should have, I mean, in the way that we've have ended up with national security risks by not planning ahead, they too have done something similar, and now they're trying to fix that. But just right before I came here, right, Trump was speaking live to the United Nations, right?
Okay.
And I did not agree with a lot of the things in the speech. I mean, he was just there telling them that, oh yeah, energy is doing great here in America now.
It is really not. I just
Yeah.
published the CPI numbers. I know exactly what's happening in energy sector and services and everything like that. It's been on a downward trend for like the last 7-8 months.
Yeah, and all these nations were sitting there. It was kind of showing, the camera was going around to show different people in the room, and and it showed Marco Rubio, and I felt bad for the guy having to sit there and listen to that, because Marco Rubio knows that a lot of people in the room know that a lot of the things he's saying are not true, because even the UK, they get oil and gas, but they also have these massive wind turbines floating in the sea now.
Okay.
And they're doing that not just to have a failed renewable project. They're doing that. They're providing a lot of power to their citizens. It's actually effective.
Yeah.
So Trump was there saying, yeah, the windmills are so ugly and are difficult to maintain. He was saying this to the United Nations, right?
Wow.
And he's like, oh, solar is totally useless. I mean, I remember seeing years ago, like if one corner of Arizona was filled up with solar panels, would power the entire United States, right? And it's like, it's not that it doesn't work. It's just that it has taken some time to invest and ramp these things up. And honestly, I know a lot of people here in Houston that have worked with all sorts of things, right? These renewables like wind and solar. I know a guy in San Antonio that started a big new battery company a few years ago.
And we need that.
Yeah, and it's like, that's just in the very beginning stages still. I mean, that is going to make solar even more effective, right? If you can kind of store up the energy.
Solar is great, but China has that sold up in lock, stock, and barrel.
Exactly.
I mean, no one in the world can beat the price for solar that's coming out of China.
Yeah, they were cutting to China a lot in this video feed that I was seeing on YouTube, and they're running around circles around us with things like electric cars and stuff like that.
Yes.
And so for the president to come in and say none of this is the future, it looks pretty bad, right? I mean, it looks like someone wants us to go back to 1955. I feel like coming Back to the Future or something.
I mean, and 1955 was probably a great time. I wasn't born until 1982. Yeah. I feel like I missed something, but then I'll probably be dead by now if I was born at that time. But electric vehicles, they are the future. And effectively, they have put blocks on China's BYD, Build Your Dream. I actually saw a BYD SUV 3 days ago. And I know I was not supposed to be looking into this person's car. They probably thought I was a burglar or something like that, but I couldn't help but stand next to the glass and go like that. And I'm telling you, what I saw in this SUV was monumental. I loved everything I saw in that car, even though it wasn't on. I was very surprised of how it looked. I even tried to look out the window to see who's going to get in, try to drive off to see it and talk to him, but I didn't catch him. But it was a very fascinating thing to see. With the Trump administration's hardline stance on Chinese SUVs, what do you think is going to happen here in the States?
Well, it would be one thing if he's saying, okay, we're going to have this protectionist stuff and then we're going to ramp up protection here. But it feels like they're kind of confused about what they're going to do, because they're saying like, yeah, renewables aren't good. We should have gasoline-fired vehicles. And it's like, then what are you going to, why do you want to...
I get why he's doing it. He's trying to protect American jobs. More importantly, trying to protect American companies.
We can have jobs in building electric cars or renewables.
Right now, I think Ford or GM just had like 500,000 cars just recalled like 2 days ago. And these recalls are coming almost every other month or so from these cars. And I'm going to be very honest, because I'm going to say it here on VEDA World News, and I don't expect you to agree or even say anything. These are trash cars. If you have to have that many recalls in this amount of time, it is a trash car. GM makes trash cars right now. Ford makes trash cars right now. People do not, under these economic uncertainties, they cannot afford to have a trash car and pay for it. It's too much money, too much gas, too much maintenance. It's a lot. So let me ask you, what do you think is the solution for this?
I will say I know a mechanic. He was retired now, but he was a mechanic for 3 decades here in Houston, and he was one of the first people I knew to buy a Tesla. Oh, and wow. I thought, he used to have like Porsche posters up and all this kind of stuff. I thought he would hate this whole electric car thing. He would want like a nice roaring engine kind of car, right? No, he was excited. He was like, it's amazing that you don't have to do hardly any maintenance. Really? And so that was very telling for me that if he, as a car guy, recognized that this is a better future for us, it was encouraging, right? With all of these subjects, I think we already saw in the spring that, our president doesn't really understand the economics or what's good for us, because he was trying to tell the oil execs, just drill, baby, drill now, okay? Well, and it's like, and then what happened, right? One of my neighbors in HR at a super major oil company here had to go through a very sad couple months firing lots of people, lots of layoffs, right? And then another one.
And this is because of the drill, baby, drill idea or notion.
Yeah, he's telling them that, but they're like, look, you don't understand anything about our energy industry, and we actually have to do tens of thousands of layoffs this year. Sorry. Wow. Because we can't,
To Trump's defense, I will say he may not necessarily know much about oil, gas in that industry, right? But the people that he hires, they should know because they advise him.
Some of the people he hires are talk show hosts. No offense to you. Well, you actually studied something,
No, I get it. I would never attempt to talk about something that I did not have any formal training in.
And I would trust you to actually go up and study up if you're going to be making
I really
energy policy or something like that, right?
I would always, if I was in charge, point of personal privilege. If I was in charge, all cars would be electric.
Yeah, it would definitely reduce a lot of maintenance costs.
Emissions. Yeah. It would also help bolster jobs and the infrastructure in this country because we really need it. I was just walking down the street today and I saw the power lines hanging so low, like I really felt like it was a safety hazard. I didn't even want to walk on that side of the street right here in Houston, Texas.
Right, yeah. I imagine in the wintry north of Chicago, you probably had a lot underground more. Right?
Everything was underground for the most part. We still have telephone poles up like anybody else does in this country, but with fiber optics and everything like that happening, a lot of things are underground.
Which I know is a challenge in our big spread out city to go and fix all that.
And given the fact that we have a lot of flooding here.
Yes, we do.
And I just recently read that Mr. Elon Musk was considering doing an underground tunnel like here in Houston to kind of help, ease that burden of drainage for us. But I know he's going to get something out of the deal. He got to get something out of the deal.
Yeah, but he didn't come up with that idea.
Who did?
We already had, I'll come to that.
Please do.
We've already had an ongoing study for some time, for some years, right? Even the Army Corps of Engineers was involved, right?
Really?
And with Harris County and trying to figure out how to put in, it sounds like science fiction, right? To have these massive flood tunnels running under the city, right? But honestly, 2006 or a long time ago, they put in something like that in Malaysia. I think it's called the Smart Tunnel.
Okay, how did that work?
And I don't know how they built that, but they said it saved the city from flooding many times now.
Wow!
Right? And
really?
that's 20 years ago, right?
What is taking us so long?
And so the study that has been going on recommended. I think it was 40-foot tunnels, mini 40-foot tunnels underground. Okay, under the center of the city, and kind of just whisk that water away to the ship channel. Now, recently, in the last few months, there is a U.S. representative in the district touching this one. Mr. Hunt. He was advocating pretty loudly that Elon Musk's boring company should come in and do some tunnels here. Maybe he felt like things are moving too slowly with the study, and maybe they are, maybe they're not. I'm not a civil engineer. I don't know how long it should take, but I kind of trust those people to know that the recommendations are good.
Okay.
Now, they're saying for Elon Musk that they would just put in about a quarter of the size, I think about 11 or 12 foot wide tunnels, and at a much shallower depth. The original study was saying, I think, 140 feet of depth, and these would be like 30 feet, which kind of is risky for infrastructure like bridges and all that kind of stuff.
Things will collapse on you.
Yeah, and also they were saying that this wouldn't carry nearly as much water away as the big tunnels.
Okay, so
why is he advocating for this? I know he's been scouting around for running for senator. Maybe he needs some campaign donations
here in Texas.
Texas. Now he hasn't officially announced, and some Republicans are trying to get him to back down from that.
You know what? I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this.
But there's a man who has a lot of money that could help him with that campaign, right?
Yeah, but I'm looking at the track record. He was in the White House. They were buddies. Right. Now they're not. Now he's not there. I don't want to see him leave Texas high and dry. No. I look at that. If he does it again, that's a pattern. Yeah. And I don't want to see anyone bring anything like that to Texas. The people of Texas deserve better than that. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I haven't been following Wesley Hunt so closely.
Okay.
I know a veteran here in Houston. I mean, he has helped out in an organization that helps veterans also. And he met Wesley a few years ago. He said he liked the guy when he first met him, but he is disappointed that Wesley has just kind of gone full bore Trump, you know? And I mean, I heard that maybe he was going to the White House for help with the Senate campaign. Theoretically, the White House and Elon are not buddies anymore, but we don't know if that was all staged or what. Who knows? We're the little people down here, right?
We are the little people, and there's nothing wrong with little people because it is little people who help make bigger people bigger.
But, you know, Wesley, bless his heart, is kind of a nice go-between between them right now. But he seems to be friendly with both. Or, you know, maybe he really cares about Houston. He's trying to do something. Maybe he feels like, again, that other study is taking too long and we need to get something done now to prevent floods. However, because of the players involved, I'm not confident it's the best solution.
Okay.
Plus, I've read some civil engineers saying that it's not an effective long-term solution for the city of Houston, right?
What is an effective long-term solution?
Those big 40-foot tunnels.
Okay.
It'll cost more money. They're deeper, but it'll probably be better for our city. It sounds good to me. Okay. Knowing that it has worked in Malaysia.
Okay.
I think some other, I don't know which one, some other Texas representative, or maybe it was one of the governor, lieutenant governor, or somebody, or maybe Paxton. Somebody said, you know, Elon's got the only company in the world that could do this, or he's the only one who could do this. I'm like, look, they did it in Malaysia 20 years ago. That wasn't with Elon, right? So
this is true.
You know, let's just.
This is very much so true. Let me ask you, because we're getting ready to wrap up.
The Army's not going to profit off of this.
No,
they're going to help us.
They are.
They're serving the American people,
and they should. They should. To be honest with you, I'm a former veteran myself, and most Army people, we really don't do too much stuff when we're not, you know, deployed or anything like that. We're not doing nothing. We can help, and I think we should.
Yeah.
From your campaign, just wrapping things up, what are 3 things you'd like the viewers to know about your campaign, what you stand for, and what you plan to do?
Yeah, so I am not from the establishment, and I think a lot of us, you know, so I'm a middle-class working father, husband, who I think a lot of us feel like the establishment playbook hasn't been working for us, right? And, you know, the party has definitely shot itself in the foot in recent history, and I think we need to change, and that I'm wanting to bring that change. You know, I feel like I have a deeper understanding of some of these major industries. I've worked in healthcare, finance, and energy. I'm not going to just be relying on a think tank or the party to tell me what's best in these policies that are going to be worked on. And so the other thing that I'm pretty passionate about is, again, the corruption in Congress. I want to stop insider trading. I've been trying to explain to many people that, you know, a campaign like mine, I can only take so much money from an individual, and these super PACs can come in with unlimited funds from undisclosed donors. It's not a level playing field, and it drowns out the voices of the voters. I've been saying it doesn't matter if you're blue, red, purple, or orange. All Americans should get behind that. There are people on both sides of the aisle that want to stop that, but there are establishment players on both sides of the aisle that want to preserve that status quo. So we need more votes in Congress. I can tell you that I myself am going to, anytime you say you're going to be a politician of integrity, it's kind of like, well, but you're going to be a politician, right? How's that possible? So I leave it to you to decide whether you believe that I'm going to not be compromised in Congress, one of the few, I guess, or hopefully a growing number of us will be like that. So again, I'm not from the establishment playbook. I believe the middle class has been getting left behind. The middle and working class is worse off than it was 50 years ago. There are things that have changed in our world since then, but it's not all an accident. There have been policies that have been misguided over time. We need to fix those. So again, I've met with the American Small Business League. They have some great goals, I think, for propping up more Americans. And I also met with an organization called Patriotic Millionaires. I am not qualified to be a member, but it's encouraging to know that there are people like them who feel like they should pay their fair share. And they are working hard to take the burden. They feel like people like us are shouldering too much of the burden of the country, and they need to be doing more. So they're trying to get legislation through Congress to do that. And I told them I'm excited about that. I, again, want to see the working class and middle class Americans raised up and not let the establishment or the powerful players kind of lord over us.
Understood.
Yeah.
Now, where can people find you? Your Democratic base, people who want to support you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so Stephen Huey for Congress.com, or if you just want to type in Huey.vote, it'll take you there. So check it out, and I'd appreciate your support because I am just relying on grassroots supporters like you.
Understood. Yeah. This is Stephen Huey, Democrat, running for Congressional 18th District. My name is Michael Thurber, photojournalist and sociologist here at VEDA World News. You can catch us at VEDA World News at VEDACOM, VEDACOMM.com. We'll see you on the next one.